Hey everyone, I am Double G alongside my friend and co-host Andrew Zarian today. Denise Salcedo has big timed us once again. Just kidding. She's got some other stuff going on, so it's just me and Andrew, and guess what? We're live, pal. How's it going, Andrew?
We're live, pal. Hey, listen, big time Denise. We got to talk about big time Salcedo because she is, and I've said this. How many times have I said this to you? I said the day's going to come where she's going to explode into this megastar and forget about Andrew Zarian, who? Garrett, who? No, Denise has, 5,000 projects, so she got the day off. I think we've been rotating, all of us. We've been rotating.
Yes.
The holidays are rough.
The holidays are definitely rough. Speaking of, though, the holidays, we just had Thanksgiving, got to spend some time with the family. I was in Tucson, Arizona. My parents are out there. My sister's out there. I still have one kid left in college, and he goes to school in Tucson at the University of Arizona. But he turned 21. Actually, turned 21 about 12 days ago. But it was the first time. I should have actually sent the photo over. But the three of us, me and my two kids, legally drinking, because we're all 21. But I did not have a drink with them. Yeah, I did not have a drink with them until they were 21. I wanted to make it official. So it was official. So got to hang out with them and lots of fun. How's Thanksgiving at Casa de Zarian?
It's always crazy here. My wife's family is gigantic. It's a very large Italian Puerto Rican family. So you could only imagine how loud my house is during the holidays. Between my side of the family and her side of the family, it's out of control. We had like 25 people here.
Nice.
I end up making the turkey every year, and I just catered all the sides. I no longer spend. My wife and I have decided we're not gonna kill ourselves in the kitchen all holiday. We want to enjoy it as well, so we just cater all the sides, and I make the turkey, and that's about it.
Where are you going to get the sides though?
There's a place by me, right down the block from me, that does unbelievable catering for like all the holidays. But like it's been here for like 30 some odd years. It's like family run, family run market that they have this amazing kitchen and they do all these great stuff. They brought it that morning. It was right. I mean, just like they finished it, they brought it over, and it didn't have to sit over, which was fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. How much wrestling did you watch during this time though? Because I didn't have to do Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave, so I didn't have to be caught up on stuff. I didn't even do my own Fight Game podcast because it was actually Wednesday night. Instead, I interviewed Jim Valley the previous weekend to let people get an update on how Jim is doing. So I could kind of place that in that spot. But so I didn't watch Raw last week. I did watch last night. SmackDown, I got caught up on the weekend. Same with Rampage, same with Dynamite. Were you watching wrestling last week like you normally would during your normal weeks?
Probably not normally. I tend to watch stuff on a delay, and this was part of that big ratings conversation I had on Wrestling Observer Live. I had to watch everything before Sunday, right? Because I had to do a show.
Right.
But my patterns are all over the place. Like Wednesdays, I'm generally not home, so I never get to watch Dynamite live. I rarely watch Rampage live. SmackDown, I'll tend to watch live. But pretty much what I did Thursday morning, I checked out all of Rampage, all of Dynamite, I should say. On Friday, I did not watch anything. But Saturday morning, I watched everything. I just loaded up on all the wrestling. So my pattern was all over the place this week, which I absolutely enjoyed, doing nothing on a Saturday except for watching wrestling. That was a lot of fun for me. But listen, everybody's so busy nowadays, and there's so much competition for your eyeballs. It's kind of difficult to sit there and watch everything live, right?
Yeah. And I apologize to the audience because we didn't have a show last week. So I was going to ask you and Denise not here this week, but also ask you, when you're a kid, so when we were kids, this is probably before your time as a wrestling fan because you're a little bit younger than me, but Starrcade would run on Thanksgiving. And then in 1987, the Survivor Series came, which was literally to combat Starrcade going live on pay-per-view for their first time ever. But from 87, 88, 89, and 90, I think all of those shows were on Thanksgiving for Survivor Series. I think 91 may have moved to Wednesday instead of Thursday. But did you ever watch any wrestling on Thanksgiving as like the event?
Yeah, yeah. I have distinct memory of my cousins all being over and begging my father to order Survivor Series. This has to be 1990. It has to be Survivor Series 1990 or maybe 89. Because I didn't the
So 89 would
Hogan
be the
Warrior.
Mega Powers, and then 90 would have no, you're right. 88 would have been the Mega Powers. 89 would have been Hogan Warrior, I think, right?
For WrestleMania, right? Yeah. So
Right.
1990. What that was my first WrestleMania that I remember watching specifically, right? Was Hogan, which is 1990. So it
Yes.
had to have been 89. Definitely 1989. It was like a thing that the family did. Then the Tuesday in Texas one, that took place a week after 91, right? Survivor Series 91.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't remember if that was a Sunday pay-per-view or if that was a midweek pay-per. I can't remember for the life of me.
It would have been Wednesday would have been the Survivor Series, and then the
Okay.
following Tuesday would have been Tuesday in Texas.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense because my family was over for that also. So, I find it very interesting. You know, like I find the whole thing really cool that was like a thing that we did as a family. Like everybody's just watching wrestling on Sunday on Thanksgiving night, which is a really fun environment to be in and watch wrestling. I always compare it to like if there's like a birthday, like my daughter's birthday is January 1st, so I'm probably gonna have people over watching the pay-per-view for day
Sure.
one.
Day one.
It'll be a fun environment. Everybody's going to be over. Even the people that don't like wrestling watch wrestling. It's like a Royal Rumble moment, right? Whenever you gather people like that for a pay-per-view, people get kind of interested in it.
Yeah. How big is that guy? That's the question from like the casual fans. Like,
Yeah.
oh, how big is that guy? Almost. My gosh, he's
Yeah.
so big.
Dude, I just got that message. My friend Bob messaged me. He goes, "I'm watching Extreme Rules," and I said, "Well, why?" Like that was my first answer to him. I'm like, "Why are you watching Extreme Rules?" He goes, "How big is that dude?" I'm like, "He's over 7 feet."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I may have mentioned this to you, but my Thanksgiving wrestling memory is 1987. Again, WWF runs the Survivor Series as a pay-per-view, the first ever, and the cable companies now have to choose because Vince has made them choose. He's not going to give you WrestleMania, I guess it would have been 4, if you don't pick his Survivor Series over Starrcade. Starrcade was like, look, we'll run earlier. Like, they're like, nope, you can't. So I give the videotape to my dad's friend who's got one of those special black boxes, the famous black box, the best
The
time.
Pioneer. Did you have a Pioneer?
I don't remember. So I had one, but it would have been later. This woman, his friend, had an early one. So we're talking 1987, and I gave the tape. She recorded it. I made my dad go that night so he could get the tape and bring it back home. So I'm watching it at like probably 9 or 10 o'clock, and I pop the tape in, and I'm ready to see Hogan and Andre the Giant. And I'm like, what is this? This is Ric Flair and Rugged Ronnie Garvin. I was so mad, but even though that show is not historically remembered very well, right? That show in of itself isn't very well remembered. To me, it was great because it was really like, because I watched that pay-per-view and because I had to be okay with kind of getting screwed out of Survivor Series, I just started watching more NWA. And so then I just started watching both of them. So
I have a very similar story on how I got into NWA WCW. It was Halloween Havoc. It was the levels of doom. What was that? 1990 Halloween Havoc.
Well, yeah. Well, oh yeah.
With Abdullah.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
So I
remember
remember
Chamber of Horrors.
The Chamber of Horrors. There you go.
Yes.
I thought my grandmother told me there was a wrestling pay-per-view, and she had a black box too. And I was like, great. And I went over to watch it, and I was shocked by these little tiny men. That was my first thing. I was like, why do they look normal? Like, that's what I thought as a kid. I'm like, this guy looks normal. He looks like he could be my father. This guy looks like my uncle. That was my first impression. And then I got hooked on it. I saw Sting
Yeah.
and Luger and Flair, and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, okay, this is awesome, But like really, like seeing like Ronnie Garvin, you're like, this isn't Hulk Hogan. This isn't,
No.
a jacked up guy with face paint running
Yeah.
around and shaking the ropes. But that brought me into, seeing wrestling and seeing the differences between, WWE and WCW.
All right, let's bring it back to the present time, and we'll start off with Raw because I just finished watching it this morning, and I had a thought, and I wanted to get your thought on it. We haven't seen Vince McMahon on television as a regular character for a fairly long time. I always, kind of joke about how, and I think this is the reason, which is what Dave Meltzer's always said, is that he knows that he's older now, and he doesn't want people to see him as like an old man. And so I used to always, he'd come out in these like plaid suits and stuff, and I'd joke around and call him like Uncle Milty, like looking like he looks like Milton
Yeah.
Berle more than he looks like Vince McMahon now. But today or last night, he was made his second consecutive Raw appearance. He was on Survivor Series. And so I just had this question for you, which is, do you like Monday Night Raw better with Vince McMahon as a character?
I don't know. That's such a good question. Like, I was so disappointed in last night's card because I saw the run sheet. Somebody sent it to me. I was like, you know what? This looks like it's a freaking solid show. You're starting it off with Rollins and Balor. You got Big E at the end. That you got a main event. You got Edge coming back. I knew that Vince was going to be back on the show. I was like, this is, and I also knew that the Miz was coming back, but I didn't know in what capacity. I was like, you know what? This looks like it's a pretty. They're doing everything to make it work, right? They're in New York. They're in a brand new building that they struggled with the ticket sales. They added Roman in that dark match. Didn't really. I know it bumped it a little bit, but they didn't break 6,000 people in that building, which is scary for a brand new building in a hot market. Considering next week they're probably going to have around 9,800 for AEW in that building. So I turned it on and I was like, I'm excited to watch this, and I'm watching it, and it just came off. I talk about this all the time, but do you? I don't, and I'm gonna get your opinion. Going to SummerSlam was an eye-opening experience for me. I feel like I woke up and I finally saw the division, the line in the sand between what WWE is and what AEW is, and the reality is WWE, especially Raw, right? This is more about Raw than SmackDown. It is sports entertainment. It is whatever Vince has ever envisioned for this variety, 3-hour variety show with comedy and drama and horror and fighting and plot lines. This is his SNL. That's how I see this. This is now Vince McMahon's Cirque du Soleil or Broadway play.
Sure.
That's on weekly. It's a Broadway show, weekly. So, and then you watch AEW, and that's pro wrestling. That's the wrestling that we are more connected to. But in that building, I have to tell you, like if I was there, I would have been pretty bummed out. But I know a lot of people that brought their kids. Like that whole audience was packed with kids. If you were, if you were listening, you would hear way more kids than you normally do. And they freaking had a ball. They had the best time in the world. The kids absolutely loved the show. And here's the reality. It is a different product post-pandemic. We have now entered a whole different area. So Vince McMahon coming out and doing these cameos, it's not the Vince that we know. It's not the Vince that we want or we got used to. This is a whole new character. This is another. I see it as, he's this legacy guy. You're bringing him out. He says his hellos. He shows up every couple of weeks, and he's going to go away. And to the people that are really into WWE and the product that they're putting out, it's going to make them thrilled that Vince is there. To us, got people that cover this, people that are enthusiasts, heavy enthusiasts, experts, whatever you want to call, people that cover wrestling. To us, does it mean as much? Like, I love seeing him out there, but it doesn't have the same effect that it did maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. So you see him, and he does look a bit older. He's in his 70s. Like, this is not a diss of Vince McMahon in any way. I'm watching a lot of 97 Raw for a podcast that I do on our Patreon. And so that's a different Vince, right? That Vince is full of energy and he's giant and he's on
Are you talking
TV.
commentator Vince?
Well, also he's in the ring, right? Because we're kicking off. Brett just left, so we're kicking off.
Yeah.
This Vince McMahon character that's going to be on TV for the next 3 years, and it's a different Vince. So it's an interesting comparison. But I was watching Raw last night, and you see characters who you've seen over the last several years. Edge. Edge has been around since 1997, 1998 timeframe. The Miz has been around since the mid 2000s. So you're very familiar with these guys. So when they do come back, you're like, the comeback doesn't really mean much because we've seen so much of them. But when Vince came back, I thought, well, I did kind of miss this guy. I did kind of miss the old man as a regular character. And he's doing stuff with Austin Theory, and Austin Theory is playing like the young grasshopper, and Vince has got all this knowledge, and they're doing this whole thing about, expect the unexpected. And Austin Theory's like, I learned so much from you. He's about to shake Vince's hand, and boom, smacks him right in the face.
Slap.
And I love that moment for a moment. Like, it was maybe the most memorable thing that happened on the show. I just don't know. Like, I would love to see Vince on TV again weekly as the authority figure instead of Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. But it's just not the same Vince, and it will always be less than what we remember it as.
Yeah, I don't think he would be able to have that, like, peak Mr. McMahon, like 2001 to 2006, right? That era of Vince is synonymous with a certain generation that grew up on that era. Like, to us, we have a multitude of Vince, right? We have the play-by-play Vince McMahon, the guy that doesn't know his wrestlers' names. Great Vince McMahon moment. I can't remember which Royal. I think it's Royal Rumble 1996, right? Eli and Jacob Blue, right? Right. So one of them comes out. It goes 3, 2, 1. He goes, and now coming down, it's Eli Blue, or is it his brother Jacob? He has no idea which one it was. Not a clue. That is one of my favorite. By the way, that's my favorite Vince line. Like, you could say all the what maneuvers, but it's that, and then they had all that talent exchange from Mexico in one of the Rumbles, and he had no clue who anybody was.
97, yeah.
And 97. That's also fantastic. So there's so many different levels. He could be a jackass. He could be a comedy character. He is now he's the old man. That's a little off. And I think that's a little bit true to reality. But I think for what it's doing, it's perfectly fine. If you're seeing these little backstage moments with Vince just being a lunatic, great. But having him come out there and start a feud, like how we had with Roman a couple years ago, I don't think that'll work.
Yeah.
For him. Okay, I don't think that'll work for him.
So the idea of having this authority figure, it is a tried and true formula. They've done it so often over the years, and a heel authority figure for that matter. And now with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville in that role, I think what has worked about that role in the past is the authority figure you have seen as a giant star, right? Vince, giant star. He's the heel authority figure. Sergeant Slaughter was the commissioner, and then Sergeant Slaughter didn't really matter anymore because Vince. We figured out Vince is the one who's calling shots. Triple H and Stephanie, giant stars. Shane, big star. Sheriff Steve Austin, big star. Eric Bischoff, big star. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, not quite.
Yeah.
Big stars. So to me, when I see them, it has nothing to do with whether or not they're good in their role, because I think they are pretty good in their role. The writing isn't great. Obviously, we know the writing isn't great for a lot of that stuff. But because they're not giant stars, you could put anybody in that role of how it currently is, and I'm just like, they don't mean anything because I have no meaning. I have no relationship with Sonya Deville or Adam Pearce as someone who I'm looking forward to seeing. And I think that's why Vince stood out to me. I was like, I miss this guy. I look forward to seeing this guy so often. And now, obviously he's not going to be there day in and day out, but I actually liked him being there because it made me feel a little nostalgic about the show in a way that I don't generally feel nostalgic about the show. Just like if Austin would come back for a week, right? We'd just be like, I miss that guy. Same with The Rock. I felt like that about Vince.
Yeah, I have to say, going back to the authority storyline, right? It always had a despicable person in it. I don't look at Sonya Deville and say this person's despicable, and I don't do that same for Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce is a guy that he had this great independent run, and he just never did it on mainstream television. Sonya Deville, I think after that guy breaking into her house, I can't get behind looking at her and saying, "Oh, this person's a piece of crap." But with the
Yeah.
McMahons,
Yeah.
it comes natural.
Yeah.
Steph is a mirror of her father as far as getting people to dislike her. I'm not saying again, I'm not talking about the people, the actual people. I'm talking about characters. Steph is great to boo at. Hunter's same exact thing. You have years of between holding people down, the stories that you hear about that. Not saying that it's all true or not, but there's a lot of negativity with them. Eric Bischoff, another authority figure, right? You want to boo him. I don't feel the same about the other ones, but once you remove the McMahons from that element, you know that it's just people acting. I think when it
Yeah.
was the McMahons, you kind of felt a little bit more of a connection with booing them because at the end of the day, in your mind, they're the actual bosses. Hey, why not bring Nick Khan out? I want Nick Khan to show up.
Yeah,
You
that's
want
That's Ric
boos.
Flair's. That's the person Ric
Yeah.
Flair hates the most right now. Poor Nick Khan getting the blame for that stuff.
Dude, he's a brilliant business mind, man. I had a chance to meet him at MSG, and I mean, just you talk to him, he's super impressive. He's a corporate guy. He's been in the sports business for a long time.
Oh yeah.
It's a very different WWE, and that's what I keep explaining. They have now transcended into a media conglomerate rather than a wrestling promotion. And this is the guy. He's responsible for this, obviously.
Yeah, I would like to talk to Nick, not about wrestling, but just about the sports business environment because he's like one of the smartest guys ever about it. Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm not trying to get you texted during the middle of this show.
All right, hold on. Let me put my phone on silent. I'll ignore it.
But I do have a question about, because we didn't get to talk about this last week, but the Survivor Series egg, which was the tie-in to the new movie with The Rock, Red Notice, right? Is that what it's called? Red Notice?
Red Notice.
So there was this tie-in, you had been reporting that The Rock, this celebration of 25 years of The Rock, originally possibility that he was going to be there, didn't work out. He's doing stuff for Young Rock. Why didn't he do a video to say thanks to all the fans, blah, 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 blah. I mean, he did it for the stinking Impact show when Ken Shamrock went into the Hall of Fame. That was odd to me that he did not do that for this show.
So I made a post on Wrestling Observer. I sent them on the website. If you go to F4W, online or Wrestling Observer, whatever you go, there was a post there, and I kind of detailed what was told to me.
Yeah.
I went more into detail. Now, I kept some stuff out because I was told not to say certain things. But listen, at the end of the day, you watch that show, you watch Survivor Series, and you're thinking, and WWE is not as inept as people would think, right? They're not inept when it comes to these kind of things. They don't want you to go home disappointed. And that building went home disappointed. Because every indicator, forget about the report that he's going to be there. But if you're sitting there and you're watching this, and
if you had no idea what was going on,
idea,
you would have felt that he was showing up at some point because of the celebration.
I'll give you a great example. I got a couple of drinks with Raj Geary from Wrestling Inc. The Monday after, and we were talking about it, and he goes, "Yeah, I brought my kids to their first wrestling show, and his daughters were telling him, and this is like their father, owns Wrestling Inc. The kids were telling him, no, Dad, he's definitely showing up. It's impossible. Look at all the Rock stuff. What are you? You're out of your mind? Of course he's going to show up.
I get it.
And I kind of felt that was the tempo of the entire show. You open up that show with this montage of Rock mixed in with the movie. You got the movie integration, which was a paid ad. Young Rock got re-signed to a second season. 25-year anniversary. You have all these factors happening. You're watching this. If I'm not in the know, I'm like, oh yeah, of course he's going to show up at the end. And he doesn't. And people are disappointed.
This dude The Rock. I'm talking about Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He is so strategic. He is so savvy. He is so smart. There had to be a reason why he didn't leave a video, right? Like I'm sure WWE would have loved it if he did, and it takes him, 30 minutes to do something. I feel like it was his decision to maybe not. I don't know for sure, but that's what it felt like to me. Is like he chose not to send something. Maybe.
Well, I'm trying to I'm going through my email while you're saying so I could find out because I asked and it was what was said to me and I'm gonna kind of abbreviate it. It wasn't needed. A video package from The Rock wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't gonna add anything to the show. That's kind of how they worded this to me on why he wasn't there. Listen, maybe there's a reason. Maybe maybe he's coming back at another time. They didn't want to kind of
Sure.
blow it if he can't be there. That when he does come back and when he is on TV, that has to mean something because it obviously is going to lead to something. So, now everything is in the air, and the response I got from WWE was whenever Dwayne is ready, he will be on the show the next day. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So they have this open, if he says like, hey, I want to be on now today, and he just shows up at the building, guess what? They're going to rework that show to have him on. They're not going to tell him come back next week.
Yeah. Okay, so this egg idea for the Survivor Series, they played it off last week. We didn't get to talk about it. I read Sean Ross Sapp's report that there was actually another idea that Team Rocker, that side of things, like vetoed. I can't imagine what was less important than this egg idea. It was a way to get Vince on. I'm fine with that, but the idea of Austin Theory stealing this egg to take a selfie, like you and I could have sat in a room for 20 minutes and wrote something a little bit more creative, a little bit more savvy, a little bit more organic. And they chose to go with this. Now, hopefully Austin Theory gets something out of it. He's spending some time with Papa Vince, with Uncle Vince. And maybe he does get something out of this and he becomes a player on the show, which would be great because I love Austin Theory. Yeah. Austin Theory on NXT was awesome. But like what were like you're pretty you have a good relationship with folks over there. Like what was there any excuse or reason or like the idea that this was going to be as important as not, it's replacing something, right? Which is we don't have The Rock. We're going to give you Vince and the egg. I just don't understand what the egg was all about.
By the way, by you saying that I have a good relationship with WWE, I just got a text from Tony Khan, and he said he's not mailing my check this week. So I hope you're happy. Listen, I have a good relationship with everybody. I don't play into the whole pick a side thing, but doesn't that egg thing, like, if I were to fantasy book this, right? The Rock comes out of the freaking limo, and Rock has the egg, because it's his freaking egg. He comes out with it, and everybody's oohing and eyeing, and everybody wants to touch the egg. He, does his Rock lines. He makes fun of them. Nobody could touch it. And then you find out at the end, the egg is missing, right? The egg's gone. Where the hell's the egg? Now you have a lead-in for Monday. And by the way, I could tell you firsthand that when the initial talks about The Rock being there, I know for a fact USA Network really was attempting to pencil this in for a Monday crossover. So then you kind of see like, okay, you know what? Because again, I don't have like the whole thing in front of me. I just get pieces. So then you got to play the game of making sense of this. So Rock shows up on Monday, not saying that he would have, right? Because I think his schedule's tight. But if you were to go down that path, Rock shows up on Monday, you find out that Vince had somebody steal it for him. Rock bottoms him, and he takes the egg and leaves.
Yeah.
The story's there.
But they didn't have
But obviously that didn't happen. They didn't have The Rock. So you had Vince come out with
by the
the
way,
egg.
Let me clarify what I said about relationship with WWE. Historically, WWE doesn't have friendly relationships with media, right? Like unless it's Hollywood and unless it's people who can help them. But for wrestling media, I think Dave would even say he has a good relationship with WWE. He just may not talk to, he may not be able to interview somebody from there, but he has a great relationship with them because they talk. So what I mean is, from a wrestling media point of view, it seems like they are reaching out a little bit more, and you're good
Yeah.
at your job. You're good at what you do. You have a great show. You have you have your own vehicle to talk about this stuff. So in that sense, I think, that's mostly what I meant when I said you had a good relationship, because you are part
Yeah.
of the wrestling media, and you get some insights, and you broke a couple stories. So that I just wanted to clarify that.
It's only because of the hair. They told me I have great hair, and that's why they answer my calls when I have a question. No, I and that is something to kind of touch on. It's like very inside baseball, and I don't get a chance to talk about it ever on Matman, but it is true that there has been a more openness to communicate than previous, I guess, generations that have, tried to get questions. Like, I could email them. I won't get a response for everything I ask, or sometimes they say, like, I don't want to talk, like
Yeah,
they don't want to
No
add
comment.
to it or whatever they say. But a lot of other times they will, be like, hey, by the way, you know, it's, if I ask a question like, how did this happen? Like, to me, they've told me The Rock was never on it
Yeah,
officially.
yeah.
Like, that's their official stance. But, you talk to other people and you kind of put it together, and it can't be a coincidence that you're hearing all these things. It's they operate like any other sports organization now, more than anything else, that they're more friendly to media to contact them and get in touch and kind of give them their PR, general PR answers, when that didn't exist as much
Mm-hmm.
for other people. Like, if you're Dave and you're getting in touch, like, I think they're going to want to respond to Dave in some way. But if you're Andrew Zarian, Matman podcast host, I don't think they would have been more inclined to answer me if I sent an email. Now it's a very different, company.
Yeah. Speaking of sports, what do you think about Max Scherzer and Starling Marte to the Mets?
Listen, my Mets are going to do well this year. All right. I'm tired of being a loser. Growing up 7 minutes from that stadium, Shane's next door to each other. But growing up, as a Mets fan, you handle losing really well. You learn to understand what life is, and you just go based on that. I find the whole thing fantastic. I hope they have a great season.
All right, let's pivot to Wednesday's promo. I don't know, was it the promo of the year? MJF and CM Punk. I heard about it before I was able to see it, but
Oh, interesting. So what did you hear? Like, okay, I'm dying to know this, right? Because you're the first person that I'm speaking to that heard about it before they saw it. So
Yeah.
what did you hear, and how did it live up to you?
Okay, so first thing I heard, and this is in our Fight Game Media Facebook group, was that they were kicking off the show, and this was the moment that people were waiting for, right? Because they teased talking before CM Punk kind of stands up MJF in the middle of the ring, doesn't say anything, and just leaves. So they're creating some hype for this promo. And then I heard that there were some comments that were WWE comments that in this, we haven't really heard people talk about WWE since WCW, really. Like, I guess they did do some stuff in Impact, but so much of a lesser scale. So there was, it's kind of like, ooh, they're talking about John Cena without saying John Cena, and ooh, they're talking about, Triple H without saying Triple H. And so but it was also that, these guys are great, and it was a great segment. So when I watched it, my initial thought, and this is just probably because I was kind of tired, was, gosh, this thing is long. Like, I thought they were going to wrap it up like one or two times earlier. But I think the line that everyone loves is, just a less famous version of The Miz, right? Like, that was the line. So ultimately, I thought it was a really good piece of business. And what are promos there for? Promos are there to hype up a match that you want to pay to see, or you can't wait to see. And in that sense, I thought it was really brilliant. Now, I think an argument can be made to say that by continually bringing up Punk being in WWE, what you are showing your audience in AEW is that he was not at the level in WWE that he currently is in AEW. So I think that was an interesting strategy. It's using real life stuff, the King of Kings holding Punk back, stuff like that. But I think it's an interesting strategy to basically say that your top star, or maybe he's 1 or 2 or 3, was not the top star where he used to be, which is your current competition. So that's a little interesting. I want to see if they go anywhere with that, or maybe it's just those guys getting a little bit of freedom to do the promo that they want to do, and they didn't really think about it in that way. But it got heat. Whenever you mention WWE, you get heat. But I wanted to first get your thoughts on that. But then last night on Raw, WWE sort of answered with their own promo. Edge comes out, his first appearance on Raw in a little while. The Miz coming off of Dancing with the Stars. Maurice is back. No John Morrison, but we get Maurice. And they went a little toe-to-toe, and Edge mentioned the AEW pay-per-view or promo ever so subtly. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on both of those things.
I thought the CM Punk MJF promo was fantastic. I think I said something like, modern wrestling, it is probably the best one-on-one promo that we've had in a very, very long time when it comes to modern wrestling. It was more reminiscent of, the Attitude Era and two guys facing each other. And the thing that really stood out to me was, in WWE, the posture is so uncomfortable. The way that they stand and they're cutting, like everybody's kind of angled and they're looking this way. Nobody's looking at each other directly. And everybody's like so close. And what they did with MJF is, for the most part, they were very separate saying the things that they're saying. And that kind of played a part of me. I'm like, okay, you know what? If somebody was in my face and they were calling me a has-been or whatever, I'm gonna slap the crap out of them or whatever, like in my mind, like if I'm a wrestler. I felt that it was a very realistic promo. Hang on, I gotta sneeze now. Jeez. Oh, okay, I'm a
look at that quick camera cut, so we didn't see anything.
Yeah, thank you, John. John, our producer. He saw. I built it up, but I thought it was fantastic. I thought maybe is there an argument that they went a minute or 2 minutes early? You could say that they went a little long, but they didn't affect how I felt about the promo.
Yeah,
I thought MJF is really, fantastic as a promo, and so was CM Punk. And now you kind of built up this match. You're like, you know what? I kind of want to see this. And is it possible that MJF beats him?
Yep. That'll be interesting
this is
to
an
see how they
actual
play that out.
thought to have. Yeah, and I do like that with CM Punk. They've had him essentially start from the ground up. And same thing with Danielson, too. I mean, now Danielson's in an elevated position because Moxley's out. But, they both have started. They didn't come off as like the number one contender. They've started from a bottom point, and now they're trying to rebuild their brand, their personal brand. And I think for CM Punk, he's facing more challenges because he hasn't wrestled in 7 years. And, you kind of see him go through, getting there so little by little. The Eddie Kingston match was fantastic. I thought that was a very unique match that they did. I think he's facing Lee Moriarty
on Dynamite,
on Dynamite. So this is another one of his, getting back into that ring, getting back into the groove. I'm very happy with what they're doing. It's the wrestling that we kind of understand a little bit more, because this is how wrestling was for majority of our upbringing when it comes to promos and storylines and the way that it's driven. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was a fantastic job by both of them.
Okay, let me
Monday.
Let me set it up for you. So I'm watching Edge, and Edge, from a performance standpoint, you can tell this guy thinks about what he's going to say. He's an actor, legit acting chops. So his presentation is always going to be on point. He understands how to be a babyface, even though I think his babyface run maybe has been a little bit of a disappointment. I really thought people were going to get behind him a little bit more as like a draw and as like this guy you just want to see win. Here's what I thought was interesting, though. So the whole thing about the Miz, right? The Miz is this artificial WWE created guy. Like, that's kind of his character. He is a company man, and he even said that every time he goes on does something outside of WWE. His whole goal is to show that WWE superstars are the best entertainers ever. Like that's his goal. He's like the proverbial like employee of the month. Like that's who Miz is every week. He wants to be the employee of the month. And Edge pointed that out. That he is. It's more about the performance and the presentation and the entertainer than it is about like just being a wrestler. But the ironic thing to me is that if you compare the promos of Punk and MJF, just kind of going back and forth, that felt more organic than what Edge was trying to do, which is be the organic wrestling guy. His performance felt more like a put on to me than even what the Miz was doing. And that is partially because he's so good at it. He's so good at not skipping a beat. You don't hear Edge ever say, you don't hear him stutter one time. He's so perfect that I thought that worked against him a little bit in that promo, because as a performance, it was awesome. As an organic wrestling promo, I thought it was almost too much of a performance.
Yeah, I could see that. I thought it was fine. I didn't. Listen. Edge is fantastic. You've mentioned it numerous times in the past too, how his promo abilities have hit a certain level, and a lot of that is attributed to acting classes and time that he's had to kind of work on that craft. But I thought he was great, but I know exactly what you mean, that it comes off as acting, right?
Yes.
But isn't that what WWE is now? I mean, everything comes off as acting because they are acting. They're reading scripts. They're reading lines. It was better acting than what 90% of the roster is able to do. See, like, and then
he also, you know what? Roman. He also didn't have to say "liar, liar, pants on fire." That's also
he didn't.
Poor
he didn't
Seth.
have that. Yeah, I know. Can you? Dude, first of all, that opening Seth promo, I have to tell you, and that was the moment I'm like, oh, this is it. It's not wrestling anymore, and I watch it more and more, and I watch it. Listen, there are weeks that I really enjoy it. Like I'm not complaining about it, but it is not professional wrestling. It is something else. It's this bizarre, whatever Vince has wanted. This is what it is now. This is what we have, and this is how the promos are going to be. They're going to be scripted. They're going to be acting, because at the end of the day, they're all actors.
Yeah. That's I'm sure that's how he wants. But if he wants them to be actors, he should pay them like actors. Okay, let's quickly move on. I don't want to get you. I don't want you to get texted again. Okay.
Hold on, it's coming.
So quickly, because we have about 15 minutes left. I want to get through a couple things. We're not going to break down the full show. I'm sure you'll have a little bit of a preview on your show. I'll have a little bit of a preview on my show. I know Denise is going to preview the whole thing. So, WarGames, my question to you is, NXT no longer putting on takeovers. Now they're doing, we'll see what they do in future weekend shows, but this is NXT WarGames. This isn't NXT TakeOver. Based off of what they've done to build to these two WarGames matches, are you intrigued this weekend, or maybe is it a little bit lower on the priority than a normal takeover would be?
WarGames is when? The 5th, correct?
It is
December
this weekend,
5th.
I think. Yeah, whatever this Sunday is.
Yeah, Sunday, December 5th. I'm interested in it. I think they did a good job last week at building that match. I liked how the show ended. With the team, how that story ended with the teams, and then kind of Braun Breaker's the big story here, and they're doing the new class versus the old class.
He's got to win, right? He's got to win.
He has to. What you got? Gargano, you got Ciampa, Gargano, Pete Dunne, and LA Knight, and versus Braun Breaker, Hayes. Who else in that? Tony D'Angelo and
is Grayson Waller.
Grayson Waller. There you go. This is, I don't know how well, Tony D'Angelo is going to look in it, it's a very specific match, and I believe this is the first one that you don't have the Undisputed Era in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a very different match. I think they're going to do a fantastic job at it, and there's a lot riding on this match to work. You got 5 matches here. I'm looking forward to it. It's just, it's in that same building. It's a smaller building. By the way, I did ask about the takeover name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And initially I was told it was dead. And then I was told, well, nothing's ever dead. If the day comes and we're running those big buildings again, we'll use that name again. That was what somebody said to me. Not in an official way. It was, in passing. But
That makes sense.
I don't know. I'm looking at this card, it's going to be a good card. It's going to be a good show. It's just, it's not the same NXT. It's not the same show.
How many product? Okay, let obviously they weren't going to sell 12,000 tickets on the day before a big WWE show like a former takeover would. They've even done takeovers outside of a big WWE show before, and we're able to draw. I think there was one in Portland maybe 2 years ago. How many people do you think they could have actually drawn to this version of takeover? Obviously, much smaller building. Could they have put 5,000 fans in a small building for a show like this? No.
Well, okay, but let's look at it like this. They did not even do 6,000 for Raw.
Right.
With big matches.
Right.
Like it wasn't a nothing show on paper. It was big matches. You want to go see it in a brand new building, and they weren't able to do 6,000. Maybe 1,200. Maybe 1,400.
I will tell you, part of my lack of supreme interest in this show is that I know it's going to look exactly the same as the Tuesday show that we're going to watch tomorrow night, and there's going to be nothing different about the scenery. We didn't get to talk about this, but I went to the New Japan show in San Jose, and I think that had 1,500 or so there. So they could at least draw, I would think, because they have national TV, they could at least draw 15-2, I think.
Yeah,
I
maybe,
think
possibly.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's very possible. But, I mean, those days of running 13,000 people at the Barclays Center for NXT, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
WWE's barely able to do that. So,
well, I mean, it's not like AEW's knocking them dead at the box office these days either. They're having some, rougher showings than even a couple months ago when they were able to sell out a lot more tickets than they are today. And it's just, there's still stuff going on, man. Like, even the Warriors, who are the top team in the NBA right now. Like if you watch the game when the games start, like there's tons of people missing in the building, but that doesn't mean that tickets are cheap, because I just bought tickets for myself and my two sons for Christmas, and oh my god, jeez, it's like here's like, why don't I just give you my paycheck to go to these games? Like it's so expensive. All right. So go ahead.
But that's an inherent issue across the board. Like I'm heavy in the hospitality industry. A lot of my clients, and I have to tell you, you look at people's patterns, people's habits, and it's all out the window. Everything is all over the place now. So it's very difficult to predict. But it says something that WWE couldn't do at least 8,000 in that building. And I'm not knocking WWE. My argument here is people's patterns have changed. A lot of people are still not comfortable with going inside of a large venue like that. A lot of people don't want to deal with the hassle of dealing with the whole thing. I think that also plays a part, and you're going to see a hit. But, like you brought up the Warriors, the Giants game was really empty. And these are season tickets, especially, well, the Warriors too. Those seats are not, you're not talking about empty seats like people didn't buy their ticket for the seat. These are season ticket holders that are not showing up. Can't
sell them on secondary market.
Yeah.
So
very interesting stuff. The ticketing industry always fascinates me. By the way, WrestleTix on Twitter does a fantastic job. Giving detailed information on the ticket information. And I've been following him, but you see the trend here.
Amazing resource that I never realized that I needed until I saw it.
I know. I love this stuff. Like, like last night's, that was the final number for last night. By the way, AEW Dynamite, Long Island, same building, okay? They have 2,983 tickets available. They've opened up that whole upper bowl now for that show. So they ticket distributed, not sold. Interesting, right? That's the wording. Distributed. 8,658 and at 74% of availability. So
Hmm.
the estimated setup they're doing is 11,600. So they could do probably 10,000 people in that building.
I wonder if they're gonna try and are they they did a discount for Black Friday or something, right? Where you could buy two get one half off, or there was like
They
some
ran
deal
one.
that they did.
Yeah, they ran one and WWE ran two, I believe. They
Okay.
did WWE did a buy one get one at the end.
I like even though the WWE didn't get a lot of people in that building last night. I still like the way that it looked. I thought they shot it really well.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, look
Okay,
fantastic.
so last couple things here. We're gonna actually end this show off a little bit differently. So let's just get our wrestler performer of the week thing out of the way here. I will go first, just to give you a few seconds to think about it. My pick is because it's really amazing to see how much CM Punk means to ratings. Obviously, we know how much he means to box office based on the Rampage where he came back, and then based on the All Out show that you and I were both at. And so when I saw the opening segment to the promo with MJF, and then the fan stayed for segment number 2, which was his match, and then they kind of fell off a little bit, and then they came back for the main event. It just goes to show you that CM Punk means something to their bottom line in a really big way, and I really enjoy seeing him portray himself as a big deal. I think he means a lot to their company, and to go from that just great promo battle, and then the fans stayed to want to see him wrestle, that's meaningful. That means that what he's doing is satisfying that fan base. So great to see. I thought it was a really solid week for a bunch of people, but CM
Yeah.
Punk is my pick this week.
I'm gonna go with AEW as well, and I'm gonna go. I would have gone with CM Punk, but I'm gonna go with Bryan Danielson. I thought he's been doing a tremendous job in this new role that he's playing. He's so believable as
He's
that
so good at
person,
it. Yeah.
and he's been really fantastic, and he's kind of falling into this heel position a little bit more. I don't know if I wanted to see this yet. But I'm enjoying it. I'm
Yep.
enjoying this Bryan Danielson, number one contender push. I think him and obviously, he's gonna have this fantastic match for that world title. They're gonna really kill it in that match. But I'm going with him. I think his performance has been fantastic. He's doing something different in every match. That Colt Cabana match, I thought, Colt looked good, and Danielson just beat the crap out of him.
It's also a pretty cool style that they wrestled, which we don't often see.
Yeah, they were doing chain wrestling, which they were rolling around on the mat. And by the way, Colt is fantastic, and I think people kind of forget how instrumental he was in for that whole indies pop
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
2000s. A lot of the indie style that you see today, guys like CM Punk, Colt Cabana, Bryan Danielson, these guys were really at the forefront. Cesaro was involved in it. They were at the forefront of independent wrestling. And the fact that now, after all these years, he is now a national TV, personality, I think is fantastic for him to wrestle in his hometown against, Danielson. They've wrestled, I think, what did they say? They announced it. They've had like 6-7 matches in the past
Yeah, I don't know. I
on the
mean,
indie.
I
They mentioned it, I believe. But I
yeah,
freaking loved it.
some
I
of some
absolutely
of
loved it.
some of my indie knowledge from those days is it's really bad, and I always the excuse I give is, from about the year 1999 to 2010, I don't really remember certain things. I was too busy raising kids,
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's where
I
you are
went in
right
and out of
now.
wrestling. Now I'm
Yeah,
in there, yeah, but now I'm in the thick of things. I can't say that I can't watch wrestling this week,
I know,
which
I know.
it's very demanding. I have to tell you, there are moments I'm like, if I did this full time, like if I just said hell with my day job,
You kind
and I'm
of
just
do
gonna
it
go.
full time, though.
I do
I
it full
mean,
time, but like in my
it's
mind,
it's
I'm
a
like,
very
but I'm half-assing it. Like
yeah.
I know myself. Like this is me at like 50%.
Hmm.
Because I just don't have enough time. Like if I was doing this full time, I don't know how it would be possible for me to do, but
Yeah,
if I did, it would be a very different, motion that I'm going through. Which
right,
listen,
right,
maybe
right.
maybe something will happen soon. I don't know. I'm working on something, but
Stay tuned.
I stay tuned. I know 2022 is going to be interesting, but that's my pick. Danielson's my pick this week.
All right, so wanted to end this show off by talking about some of the things that movies, TVs, books, maybe that you've been kind of checking in on outside of wrestling that you would recommend to the people watching and listening to this show.
Say that you broke up.
Oh,
I couldn't
so
hear half of what you said.
just TV, books, movies, anything that you
Yeah.
would recommend to the viewing and listening audience.
Yeah. You know what I got into? I don't know if people know this, but Dexter's back.
Yeah.
As a mini series. It's like a 6-part mini series, I think. I've really gotten into this whole season of Dexter called Dexter New Blood. It's not the same Dexter. It's a very different story.
We're not talking about Dexter Loomis, by the way, right? We're not talking about
Dexter Loomis,
deal.
but Dexter Loomis is kind of based on him, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the whole thing?
Yes.
Dexter, the Showtime show. So without giving away the show, Dexter took off at the end of the series, and he was like in a log cabin, and he finally settled in this like sleepy town where he's like the clerk at the gun store, the hunting store. And, it picks up there where he's, relearned how to live and not to kill people and hiding the whole thing. And then everything starts to unravel little by little. So I think they've done a tremendous job. I've been loving it. And I'm also watching The Sopranos all over again.
I've never watched Sopranos, and I'm starting to listen to an audiobook called Tinderbox, which is about the origin story of HBO, and Sopranos plays a giant deal in the HBO history. So I think I'm gonna have to watch it. The problem is my wife likes to watch more funny things. She'll get anxiety around craziness before bedtime, so we kind of mostly sit in the comedy or like easy fare kind of TV shows. But I'm probably have to watch it on my own. But I'm gonna dig through it. I've resisted and resisted and resisted, but I think I'm gonna have to get through Sopranos.
So you're reading a book about HBO. So like the whole like Charles
Yes.
Dolan starting it because the Upper East Side, the very wealthy part of New York, couldn't get television. So the whole it's fascinating how it was built.
Yes, it's an oral history by the guy. What is the guy's name? I forget the guy's name, but he's done oral histories on ESPN, Saturday Night Live, on CAA. So this is his next one, and I got it on audiobook because it's like a 1,000-page book, and I was like, maybe I'll just kind of listen to it as a series of podcasts, and so that's what I'm listening to now. Okay, my recommendation is HBO Max. If you have the service, King Richard, which is the story of Richard Williams, the dad of Venus and Serena Williams, and how he created two tennis stars. Will Smith plays the lead, and you kind of think, like, yeah, Will, are we really going to do this again? You played Muhammad Ali. Now you're going to play, Richard Williams, another real life person who we kind of know if you followed Venus and Serena's story. I was not sure going into it, if it was going to be good or not, but it's excellent. The Will Smith plays a great role. The two young daughters are awesome. And it's a really good story, and if you have HBO, you can watch it. You don't have to go to the theater. And then, as an aside, as like a supplemental piece, Will Smith's autobiography also came out. And again, I wasn't really sure. I was like, am I going to like this? This dude is very introspective. He's giving you details. I'm sure that he was sort of cringing as he was sharing. Now, there's some there's some stuff about him trying to pump you up and inspire you as well. But the story is also very interesting. The Will Smith story, because I've known who Will Smith was since like the mid 80s because I was a young hip hop fan. And that's how I first met him, like before the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and before the movies. So I've been riding with Will Smith for a very long time. And that is a nice little supplemental piece to King Richard there.
Oh, very cool. I got to check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Check it out.
So what do you got going on for Matt Men and also for Wrestling Observer Live this weekend?
Matt Men this Thursday, 10 p.m. East. We do it live. A little early for the West Coast people, but the only time I could do it. I have a packed show. Obviously, Observer Live. I have to confirm with my guest. I'm just going to double check, but it may be somebody that you guys know in the F4W universe, in the Wrestling Observer universe, and maybe
it's not Big Time Denise,
someone you
is
guys
it?
know. It's not Big Time Denise. You know what?
Oh,
Maybe I
okay.
need to get Hollywood Denise on. I actually have to schedule her because she's going to be on with me in a couple of weeks. But
Yeah.
I have that going on. And then for Matt Men, we do our end of year wrap up in December. So for people who are interested, let me find the calendar here and I'll tell you guys what we have going on. On the 21st, we are doing our we're going to be doing our live Q&A. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. We're going to be doing our live Q&A on the 21st. 28th, we're going to be recording our best of and worst of. So it'll be 29th, our best of, 30th, the worst of. And the following week on the 4th, January 4th, we are going to be doing our prediction show, which I want to get everybody's prediction on this. So I want to get your prediction on it. I want to get Denise's predictions. It's our 2022 prediction show to see where the year goes because knock on wood, I hope this is the first uninterrupted year since 2019 for pro wrestling. I hope that's the case.
All right, so for me, Fight Game Podcast, Wednesday night, Thursday morning on the F4W Podcast Network, and then I'm sure I'm doing something with Dave this weekend. I think, or at least I thought we were going to do it around the Hall of Fame, but I know the ballots are due, Andrew. Ballots are due, I think, on Friday. Maybe the 3rd? I'm not 100% sure about that.
I freaked out that I forgot to send it. And because I have most of it done. I was going over some stuff. I wanted to do my homework a little bit, but I have to submit my ballot.
Yes. Maybe we can talk about the picks at some point. But yeah, so thank you to everybody for checking this out. Denise, we miss you. Hopefully we will see you next week. For Andrew, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.